What's up, everybody? It is Monday. You know what that means. Time to comb through all the chaos of Sunday's games, a full slate of games with two more to go tonight, and kind of recap everything that happened behind the scenes. We all know what went down in the box scores, but we don't know why. Perhaps maybe you didn't see a guy got injured. You don't know who ran the routes, got the carries, all that. We dig through that information to try and help you best understand going into next week. It's kind of the foundation for all the waiver articles we do. I do three different ones. We're all going to keep doing that because it's fantasy football playoffs. So hopefully your team survived. If not, we got all sorts of DFS, FFPC playoff challenge, everything that you need. And then we're right back in dynasty, best ball speculation. Football never sleeps here. It never sleeps for me. So I honestly at times enjoy the speculation of the offseason even more. Nah, that's not true. I like the football the best, but I still enjoy the offseason speculation. So let's get into it. First thing, just want to give a quick shout out to a lot of the sources because I watch the games, I do everything I can, but we comb around and see what kind of information we can find. The NFL's injury reports, information at Fantasy Alarm, snap counts from like football guys, Pro Football Focus. I look and see what guys like Nathan Yankee and JJ Zachariason and a bunch of guys are saying. Our guy Ryan Heath over at Fantasy Points, he does his own data dump, to try and understand as much as possible out there. Player Profiler, StatHead. I use all these resources to bring you the most information that I can here, and I try and give those guys shout outs whenever I can because it takes a village to put all this stuff together. So let's get into it. First game here, Cowboys at Panthers. Again, I'm going to try and focus most on fantasy football playoffs, but I'll let you know if there's any like DFS dart throws out there. So for the Cowboys, 50 snaps for CeeDee Lamb. He led. Brandon Cooks took his job back as the wide receiver two. In fact, he ran 28 routes, 27 for Lamb. Obviously, Lamb got all the targets, but Cooks is on the table as like a really deep play or a DFS dart throw just because of his usage. Jake Ferguson ran 25 of 30 routes. He just hasn't been super reliable, but at least he's out there. He gave up some blocking snaps to Luke Schoonmaker, but we don't really care about that. 25 of 30 routes is fine. But again, hard to trust that guy. And then Rico Dowdle, 53 snaps, 14 for Zeke. He's the clear lead dog here. He got most of the carries, virtually all the pass work. So business is good for Rico Dowdle. On the Panthers side, surprisingly, Jalen Coker had a monster game here. A gigantic play was a big part of that. Obviously, when you have like an 80-yard play, that's going to boost those numbers for you. But good game for him. Xavier Legette left with an injury, so we'll have to monitor that. It was not the wrist injury he talked about having surgery on. I think it was a quad injury. I'll have to circle back on that. Groin injury. Sorry, groin injury. So Xavier Legette left. That led Jalen Coker to be on the outside opposite David Moore. Adam Thielen played in the slot. Thielen's still more dependable, got 7 targets there. But Coker now, if Xavier Legette's going to be out, DFS dart throw, probably really deep league, maybe. And obviously in your dynasty leagues, you like to see that. At tight end, they rotated too much. So of 37 possible uh, pass plays, Tommy Tremble ran 23 routes. Jatavian Sanders ran 17. We like Sanders in Dynasty, but for right now, not really a guy you can trust. Neither of them. Bryce Young looked all right. I mean, Bryce Young, Cooper Rush has to be like a 2 QB league, super flex league, but they're on the radar. And then Chuba Hubbard, 52 out of 55 snaps. Mike Boone only played 3. So Chuba Hubbard is locked into that usage. Next game here, Chiefs Browns. On the Chiefs side, Xavier Worthy actually led the way. 61 snaps, 37 routes out of 43, and obviously 11 targets. The next highest in terms of routes run were so Worthy ran 37, 24 for Juju, 22 for Watson, 21 for DeAndre Hopkins. So they're comfortable rotating these guys. Obviously, Hopkins is the next best. He got 6 targets, but he's just not a full time guy right now, whereas Worthy is. Travis Kelsey played 67 of 65 snaps, ran 40 of 43 routes, got 7 targets. Noah Gray once again scored the touchdown. What are you going to do? I mean, if you have Travis Kelsey, you're starting him because he's getting the targets, he's playing the snaps. There's not a lot of incredible tight ends out there. So got to do what you got to do. With the running backs, interesting split here. Isaiah Pacheco led the way in terms of starting and carries. I mean, he and Kareem Hunt both played 28 snaps, and Samaje Perine played 19, which is even more annoying. So kind of hard to trust both these guys. They lean Pacheco on the early downs, and they kind of skew Kareem Hunt on some of the pass downs. But with that split down the middle, especially if Patrick Mahomes isn't going to go, that's kind of tough to trust. So those guys are going to be on the fringe with a lot of the splitting backs. Hopefully Mahomes is okay with the ankle. If it's Carson Wentz, you got to downgrade everybody, just the way she goes. With the Browns, Jameis Winston got benched. He just too crazy throwing the ball, turned the ball over too many times. Once again, it was Jerry Judy, Elijah Moore, and Michael Woods. When Cedric Tillman's back, Michael Woods will go back to the bench, and then he'll take his job back. Judy got targets. Elijah Moore was second. Michael Woods just kind of out there playing sacrificial acts. So Cedric Tillman will take that gig back. Without David Njoku, you saw 33 snaps for Jordan Akins, 23 for Blake Whiteheart. Akins ran 25 routes, but out of 41. So definitely more of a tight end two type dart throw guy, not a guy that's going to be reliable. The big news here: Nick Chubb hurt his foot. Broken foot, so he's done. Jerome Ford's probably going to be the guy moving forward. He had the big run. Jerome Ford probably the top waiver ad this week, either him or Kendre Miller, who we'll talk about when we get to that game. But definitely Jerome Ford on the radar if he's out there in leagues. Next game here: Dolphins Texans. For the Texans, it was Nico Collins and Tank Dell as the top two guys. Out of 38 possible routes, Collins ran 28, Dell ran 26. Dell hasn't been super effective. I wonder if the high ankle sprain, uh, the tightrope surgery, same issue we saw with Darnell Mooney last year and Tony Pollard. Maybe he's a buy low in Dynasty, but just not great. Honestly, this Texans offense last year when Bobby Slowick came over from the 49ers and he ran the similar offense of the 49ers with the fullback, I just felt like it was a better offense. This year, they got rid of the fullback to go three wide receiver sets with Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And it's been fine, but obviously, CJ Stroud hasn't looked as good as last year. I think maybe that iteration of the offense was a little bit better. Just my 2 cents on that. But anyway, back to the information here. Dalton Schultz, 29 routes out of 32, 4 targets, which not too bad, but at least he's running the routes. Again, these guys are kind of hard to trust in that range. He's in that back end tight end one, front end tight end two type group. I'll probably move him up in the rankings from where I had him last week, but hard to trust, but you could do worse. Joe Mixon led the way. Got every carry for the running backs, 6 targets. Like he got all the work. Dare Goombawali and Damian Pierce kind of split. If he got hurt, they would split, but who cares about that? Joe Mixon's locked into your lineup, so you got him. On the Dolphins side, Jalen Waddle left with a concussion. That's all the rookie Malik Washington elevated to play opposite of Tyreek Hill. If Jalen Waddle misses time, that would be the guy in your deeper leagues. He did get 6 targets, but again, kind of hard to trust. Not good timing for Odell Beckham Jr. to kind of shoot his way off the team because maybe he would have got some looks. Who knows? But Malik Washington, the guy there. Grant Dubose, we're keeping an eye out for him. Hopefully, he's doing well. He was taken to the hospital, but they're saying that it's a head injury and that he's doing okay. So, sending thoughts to that guy, of course. Jonnu Smith, 45 snaps, 32 routes run out of 44, which isn't ideal, but he got 11 targets. So, Jonnu Smith, obviously, in your lineups wherever you have them. And then there's really no wide receiver 3 on this team because of how much they use guys like Julian Hill and Durham Smythe and Alec Ingold. For running back, Devon Achane led the way as expected. Raheem Mostert returned and took his job back from Jalen Wright. 45 snaps for Achane, 26 for Mostert, only 3 for Jalen Wright. So he's the guy there if anything were to happen to Devon Achane. Next game here, Jets at Jaguars. Jets took care of business. Devontae Adams had a crazy game, 135 yards in the last few minutes of the game. Just incredible stuff from him. But him and Garrett Wilson are in your lineup wherever you have them. They both guys ran 36 of 36 routes. Alan Lazard ran 30 of 36, so he's kind of like a dart throw. With no Tyler Conklin, they did go more 3 wide receiver sets. Jeremy Ruckert played over Kenny Yeboah, 24 routes to 14 for Yeboah, but that's 24 36. So, and again, they have 2 great wide receivers. Brees Hall played banged up, but he got more work, more carries, and more pass snaps. Isaiah Davis played 24 snaps to 10 for Braylon Allen. We know that when Hall's out, it's probably a split between those two, but worth noting for the time being. On the Jaguars side, Brian Thomas Jr. had the incredible day. Parker Washington also played a ton of snaps, 74 for BTJ, 72 for Parker Washington. So he's the next man there. I'm not worried about any of the other wide receivers there. Brenton Strange, a big name, probably the top waiver ad on tight end. If you lost somebody at injury or you're really reeling here, 12 targets. And when Evan Ingram's been out, he's played that role. So good for him. Brenton Strange potentially add because Evan Ingram is not coming back this year. At running back, Travis Etienne played 61 snaps to only 22 for Tank Bigsby. It was a pass-heavy script, and Etienne is the pass-down guy, so that's a big part of it. But he also got more carries than Bigsby as part of that. So you definitely have to keep an eye on these scripts and see which way you think the game's going to go. With Mac Jones, I would probably lean to the pass catching back. And the Jaguars have Vegas and Tennessee. So I guess maybe the game scripts could be pretty good. So who knows on that. So I guess Bigsby could still be on the menu, but it's a split down the middle at best between those guys. So definitely keep that in mind. With the Commanders and Saints is the next one here. Commanders, Terry McLaurin, incredible day. With no Noah Brown, who is now on IR, De'Ami Brown played the wide receiver 2 role. 70 snaps for McLaurin, 61 for Brown. So he's your best dart throw there for sure. Jamison Crowder and Luke McCaffrey and Olamide Zacchaeus all kind of rotated. Zach Ertz left the game with concussion. If he'd missed time, Ben Sennett would be the better option for pass catching. Both Sennett and Bates played 42 snaps, but Sennett ran 25 routes. Bates only ran 10. So hard to trust those guys right now, but good news for Dynasty for Ben Sennett's value that he immediately kind of Bates kept his inline role, and Senna kind of took the pass catching role of Ertz, which is what we were hoping. So good news there. If Bates got elevated into a pass catching role, that would have been a really bad news for Senna. That's kind of what I'm getting at there. So good news for him in Dynasty. Hard to trust in redraft. For the running backs here, Brian Robinson dominated 58 snaps. Jeremy McNichols played some pass snaps as usual, 22. Only 3 snaps for Chris Rodriguez. So not much to worry about outside of Brian Robinson. On the Saints, it was MVS leading the way with Kevin Austin Jr. on the outside, which is the way it's been. I know Dante Pettis got 4 targets, but out of 36 possible routes, MVS ran 28, Kevin Austin ran 28, Dante Pettis ran 19, Cedric Wilson ran 11. Can't trust those guys. The guy that actually led the team in routes run was Juwan Johnson with 29. I know he got 3 targets. Foster Moreau scored the touchdown, but he's not a bad option in that mid-range if you're desperate. He led the team in routes run. There's no Taysom Hill, so just something to keep in mind. Big news from this one, Alvin Kamara out. I'm going to dig in and kind of make a call here on what I think. But here's the thing. Alvin Kamara suffered a groin injury, and he did not return. He could be back at some point. With Nick Chubb, he suffered a foot injury, and he's likely done with a broken foot. So you got to decide, do you want to go with Kendre Miller or do you want to go with Jerome Ford? I'm going to look at the information, but as of right now, I kind of lean Jerome Ford a little bit just because the idea that, Nick Chubb is out. He's done. Alvin Kamara, we don't know for sure. So, but Kendre Miller he's looked good. I mean, Jerome Ford looked good too. So I'm going to go through and dig through that. You'll see my full write-up when the Fantasy Line waiver article comes out. These are kind of the first reactions, but you're seeing me work my way through the thought process here. Also want to see if Derek Carr is going to come back because, that could affect things in terms of how we rank these guys as well. So, but Kendre Miller played over Jamal Williams in a big way. 26 snaps for Miller, 6 for Jamal Williams. The Jamal Williams signing, what they paid him, not really looking like that great a deal. I think they were just chasing touchdowns from a offense that's better than theirs. Baltimore Ravens at the Giants. On the Ravens side, Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman continue to play big snap shares. 28 routes out of 29 for Flowers, 25 for Bateman. He scored the 2 big touchdowns. Bateman is an ad. He's a guy that you could potentially look at. Probably not my top ad. There are some other guys out there, but in deeper leagues, absolutely, this guy's playing a good snap share, and he's a threat to score deeper touchdowns. On the tight end situation, 39 snaps each for Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, but Andrews ran 24 routes to 17 for Likely, so he's ahead of him there. He scored the touchdown. Tough matchup with the Giants. Even, Bobby Okereke out, maybe not as tough as you would think. So Mark Andrews, he really bailed you out with the touchdown, but again, back end tight end 1 type territory. Derrick Henry did not have the big game that we thought because, Lamar Jackson threw 5 touchdown passes. What are you going to do? Not like Henry was bad. 14 carries, looked fine out there. They brought in Rasheen Ali at mop-up duty, and he got 8 carries. So they did actually bring somebody in for mop-up. I thought they wouldn't, but they did. New York Giants, Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson leading the way. Neighbors, 41 routes out of 42. So he's a full-time guy. Wan'Dale ran 32 of 42. Darius Slayton ran 28 of 42, and then Jalen Hyatt mixed in a little bit. So we couldn't trust Slayton anyway unless Neighbors is out. And then Wan'Dale is a PPR only type guy. He did get 8 targets, but you know how it goes with him and guys like Josh Downs, very low A dot. So tough to trust there. Daniel Bellinger ran 25 of 42 routes. That's not enough for us. Greg Dulcich played a little bit, 7 snaps, ran 6 routes. So they only used him on pass downs. So you know what? Not going to be able to trust him this year, but at least he's still kind of got a pass catching role. Very deep dynasty leagues, maybe hold on. But I mean, he'll need to go somewhere else because this team has Theo Johnson. So we'll see what happens with him. Tyrone Tracy led the way, 46 snaps to 23 for Devin Singletary, 10 carries to 7. Tracy ran 20 routes to 10 for Singletary. So he's still kind of ahead in all phases. It wasn't as dominant. Like they split a little bit there. Bengals at Titans, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Those are the guys. Andre Yosivas played a decent amount. They used a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. He got 4 targets again. He's like in the Allen Lazard range of like, you know, would you be surprised if he caught a random touchdown? Yes. No, you wouldn't actually. Sorry. You would not be surprised. Would you be surprised if he got 10 targets? Yes, I would be surprised without an injury to Chase or Higgins. So he's in that range of player for us. Drew Sample played a lot more because it was a positive game script. Mike Gesicki ran more routes, but only 20 of 38. So again, not really a guy we trust. Chase Brown played 64 or 69 snaps. So he's the guy there, locked in on Chase Brown. Tennessee Titans side, Nick Westbrook-Ikine and Calvin Ridley once again led the way in snaps. 51 for Ridley, 64 for Nick Westbrook-Ikine. We know that if he doesn't score, though, he's not a guy we can really use. Tyler Boyd's still a part-time slot guy. Chiga Okonkwo, he did get the 10 targets, and we do like Chig. And, people are going to probably chase those targets, but he only ran 21 of 40 routes. He's still split with Josh Wiley, so we're not going to move him all the way up. You got to keep in mind, the game scripts and the behind the scenes usage is often more important than the box score. So still just kind of a dart throw type guy. You don't have to go crazy adding him. In Dynasty, I always stash him because he is athletic, and I want to see what happens there. At running back, Tajay Spears got more snaps than Tony Pollard because of the game script. So Pollard got more carries, 17, but Spears played more snaps because he plays on pass plays. He ran 27 routes, got 6 targets. That's the split. So if we think this team is going to be in negative game scripts, Tajay Spears obviously going to play a decent amount. Tony Pollard gets more carries though, and usually that's more reliable for fantasy football. So keep that all in mind. Patriots at Cardinals. As expected, James Conner had a monster day, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, bunch of receptions, and he played 50 snaps. DJ Dallas played 12. Trey Benson actually got hurt here, so James Conner was locked in. Now he's going to be even more locked in. Marvin Harrison Jr., 54 snaps, went up against Christian Gonzalez. What are you going to do? Still ran 33 of 36 routes, just a bad matchup. Michael Wilson didn't really pop the way we hoped, but he still ran 29 of 36 routes. And then Trey McBride, did his thing. 36 of 36 routes, 10 targets. Trey Bone, he's perfect. He might be depending what Brock Bowers does tonight with Ritter, Trey McBride might be QB tight end 1 rest away. It's like got to downgrade Bowers if he's not getting good quality targets. On the Patriots side, Kayshon Boutte led with snaps, 45 snaps, ran 28 of 29 routes. No other wide receiver ran more than 17 routes. So guys like Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, they all rotated. They already released KJ Osborne. They released Tyquan Thornton. They just not great wide receivers over there right now. Javon Baker was inactive with a concussion. Hunter Henry ran the second most routes behind Boutte with 25. He got 4 targets, caught all 4 of them. Just, not an ideal game script. Austin Hooper played behind Henry and got his 2 targets. They use a lot of 2 tight end sets, but 42 snaps and 25 routes for Henry, 30 and 18 for Hooper. Ramondre Stevenson got 35 snaps to 16 for Antonio Gibson. They oddly like to use Gibson at the goal line sometimes, but Stevenson gets more carries, more routes every game. Like he's the better option of the 2. Denver Broncos at Indianapolis Colts. Courtland Sutton did not have the big day we hoped. He did get 9 targets though. After him, don't worry about the wide receivers. Devon Vele, Troy Franklin, little Jordan Humphrey, Marvin Mims. They just rotate them. There's no one we can trust there for fantasy football. There just isn't. I guess Devon Vele has been second in routes run, but it's not even close, really. Same with tight end. Nate Adkins, 11 routes. Trotman, 10. Lucas Kroll, 16. That's out of 37. Can't trust it. Jaleel McLaughlin got hurt here. He's expected to miss time. That should just consolidate things between Javonte Williams and Audric Estime. It should be Javonte Williams operating ahead still, but maybe makes it a little easier to use those guys if you have to. On the Colts side, Michael Pittman, 73 of 76 snaps, 43 routes, run of 44. That's ideal usage, 9 targets. Obviously, Patrick Surtain, if you didn't see, got banged up and left the game, which definitely helped him a bit there. Josh Downs played 58 snaps, 38 routes run. Alec Pierce got hurt after not catching any of his 4 targets. Adonai Mitchell took over in his role. So that's what you should expect next week if Pierce misses time. Pittman and Mitchell on the outside with Downs as the slot guy. No tight end is useful here. Kylan Granson did get 4 targets, but he only ran 15 routes of a possible 44. Jonathan Taylor, 52 snaps. He led the way. Trey Sermon was next, followed by Tyler Goodson. Next game here, Bills at Lions. This was the big one. It did not disappoint with 80 plus points being scored. On the Bills side, they continue to rotate the wide receivers. These are the snap leaders of a possible 70, 44 for Coleman, 41 for Shakir, 35 for Matt Collins, 32 for Amari Cooper, 19 for Curtis Samuel. That's from Pro Football Focus. And boy, does that make things tough to trust any of these guys. Khalil Shakir as a full PPR guy is the easiest one to trust. Got 7 targets. Amari Cooper put up 0 points flat out. So hard to trust those guys. Dalton Kincaid returned. Dawson Knox played 51 snaps. Kincaid played 34, but 24 routes for Knox, 21 for Kincaid. Obviously, Kincaid got more targets. He had the touchdown taken back on a holding call, which was tough to see. But Kincaid's already immediately the better option than Knox, but it's hard to fully trust him until he gets all the way back. But hopefully next week he will be. James Cook, 29 snaps. Ty Johnson, 21. Ty played a lot of pass downs, but James Cook got all the carries and scored all the fantasy points. Ray Davis is the rundown backup to James Cook. Detroit Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown, monster game for him. 60 of 64 routes run. They had to throw a ton. Like we said, back against the ropes, Amon-Ra St. Brown has big games. Jameson Williams, 69 snaps. Tim Patrick, 64. Tim Patrick does a very good job against zone. They used a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Hard to trust either of them, but dart throws for sure. Sam Laporte had a very slow start, but came on and did well. 77 of 79 snaps for him. He only ran 59 of 64 routes because they had him block on some pass plays, but 10 targets. I mean, you can't bank on them throwing 64 times every week, though, right? So it's like it's not like he got like a 20% target share. So you got to keep that in mind. Uh, the big news on this one, David Montgomery injured here. We don't know how long he's going to be out, but it did not look good. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the guy moving forward. They'll probably use Craig Reynolds some, but you're already starting all these guys anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Next game here, Buccaneers, Chargers. Mike Evans, awesome day for him. Hopefully he can get to his 1,000-yard season. Has to have a couple more 80-yard games to get there. Jalen McMillan was the wide receiver opposite him. 46 snaps. Mike Evans played 47. Sterling Shepard was the third fiddle out of the slot. So Jalen McMillan's probably the better dart throw if you need it. Cade Otton played a bunch of snaps. 28 of 30 routes run. Just they like throwing at Evans and these other guys better. What are you going to do? So wasn't a good matchup for him. Hard to trust him. So if you have other options, I would go there. We'll factor that into the rankings this week when I post them on Thursday. For Fantasy Law members, I will have rankings up as always on Tuesday night. But for the free ones on Twitter, those will be posted on Thursday. Rashad White, 37 snaps. He played more pass plays. Bucky Irving played more run plays. That's the split they want. Bucky Irving's running the ball better than White, but White gets a little more pass work. So Bucky Irving's still the guy I'm going to rank over Rashad White just because those carries are more dependable and reliable. On the Chargers side, Ladd McConkey played a ton despite being hurt. 46 of 52 snaps, 7 targets. Josh Palmer got 4, and Palmer and Quentin Johnston both played about the same, 38, 39 snaps. So those are your next guys if you want to take a stab there. Quentin Johnston got 9 targets here, but from week to week, it's hard to trust. Stone Smart went out there, didn't play the entire game, but got 6 targets, caught 5 of them for 50 yards, looked pretty good, although he did fumble at the very end, which kind of hurt his final total. But if Will Disley's out, he's still on the radar. Just wherever you were kind of putting Disley, I would put Stone Smart there. 5, 6, 7 targets. We're not going to start ranking him tight end 1 range, but we did have him like tight end 13 or 14, which 5 catches for 50. That's what you get. Interesting news here. Kamani Vidal played over Gus Edwards. I did not see any information that Gus Edwards got hurt. Gus had 8 carries to only 3 for Vidal, but Vidal got all the pass work. Gus only ran 2 routes. Vidal ran 16. So Kamani Vidal carving himself out a role. Something to keep an eye on. Maybe not a great matchup this Thursday against the Broncos, but the last week of the season, they face the Bengals. So that's actually probably a little bit better. So keep an eye, more of a stash than a guy you're just going to add right now. Steelers at Eagles. Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown played virtually the whole game, got a ton of targets. That's the way that goes. Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson rotated, so can't use any of those guys. Grant Calcaterra played a massive workload, 74 out of 80 snaps, 37 out of 39 routes run. Only got one target, though, because he's not Dallas Goedert, and Dallas Goedert was already hard to trust. Saquon Barkley, 19 carries, did his thing. Wasn't incredible, but it's the Steelers. Tough matchup. So he got his work. Kenneth Gainwell backed him up. Gainwell is the guy to stash if you want to stash a handcuff over there. Steelers, with no George Pickens, they used a mishmash of guys. Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson both played 35 snaps. They led in the snap department. Austin got 5 targets, only 2 for Jefferson. So, again, deeper plays, probably not even in my top 30, 35, 36, maybe not even top 40. But if you got to go somewhere, that's where you go. Mike Williams, only 15 snaps, so he's not really doing anything. Neither are like Ben Skronik and Scotty Miller. Pat Fryermuth, 22 of 26 routes run, which ties Van Jefferson, got 5 targets. He's a reliable player and not a bad option, but just not a big upside option because they don't really lean on him the way that I would like them to. But you know what? I'm done asking Arthur Smith to do anything to help us. It's you got to just understand that that's the way he operates. Najee Harris, not a good game for him. They had to lean into the pass. So Jalen Warren played more than Najee, 23 snaps to 14. Cordell Patterson played 6. That's what happens in these teams when the game script doesn't go your way. Kind of career lows for Najee across the board. So you got to keep that in mind with Najee Harris. Packers at Seahawks with Romeo Dubs back. It was Christian Watson and Romeo Dubs on the outside, Jaden Reed in the slot. That's the way they like to do it. And then Dontavian Wicks is the next man up. So 50 snaps for Watson, 48 for Dubs, 38 for Reed, 30 for Wicks. Romeo Dubs, oddly, was dropped in a lot of leagues. I mean, maybe not oddly. He was out for a couple weeks, so he's kind of my top ab this week for wide receivers. Scored the 2 touchdowns, but 5 targets for him, 6 for Watson, 6 for Reed. Not a bad player. We warned you on Tucker Kraft, only 2 targets for him. When they have a lot of guys, it's hard to trust him. He's kind of a touchdown or bust type player. Josh Jacobs had a big game per usual, 26 carries. Chris Brooks had 16 snaps. Emmanuel Wilson had 6. That's the 48 for Jacobs. So Jacobs is locked in. On the Seahawks side, it was JSN and DK Metcalf as the full-time guys. Tyler Lockett as the third guy. Lockett has not been effective. Metcalf hasn't really been effective either. 12 targets for JSN. Big day for him again. So he's clearly surpassed Metcalf at this stage. Noah Fant, only 28 of 42 routes run, so can't really trust that guy. Only 6 targets. Again, he's like the 3rd or 4th target on the team. You can't really go with those guys, those tight ends. With no Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet played a big workload once again. He's a lock for lineups whenever he's playing. He kind of bailed his day out with a touchdown a bit there. But is what it is. So, okay, that's it for Sunday. Thank you guys for hanging out. 2 more games tonight. So let's hope you win your matchups. Thank you all for hanging out with us all year. It's been a blast with everybody, and there is no fantasy alarm without the people that watch these. So if you could like and subscribe and just do all those free things to help us out, we love that. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. We'll catch you out there.